Hiya pals! I'm back. Welcome to my channel. I'm Jahshan, me, my dog and books. This is my first ever reading wrap up on BookTube, so feedback welcome, because I do like watching people's wrap ups, but I'm never sure how best to do it. So like from least to worst, or by genre, or... So today I'm just going to go through the books I read in the order I read them and give you a bit of a synopsis and my thoughts. Not the most books I've read in a month. I've read 13, quite a mix of genres. There's some horror, some witchy stuff, non-fiction, actually more non-fiction than I thought, that I thought that I would read in January, and a couple of 4 or 5 stars. It wasn't a blow-away month, but there was a good corker or two in there. So I'm going to go through them. Grab yourself a cuppa. I'm recording this in the morning, so I've got a nice big mug of black coffee with some cinnamon in it. So yeah, settle in. Let me take you through my wrap up. So the first one, it was a carryover from December into January. I do like to try and finish all my December books, but this one was quite nice because it's quite nice to carry over because it was Christmas and Other Horrors, a winter solstice anthology, so it carried on quite well. It's a short story collection. I was actually gifted this one by Titan Books because I was so excited about it. I'm not a big Christmassy Hallmark kind of gal, so I do like some dark winter thrillers or dark winter horror, Christmas horrors as well. So I went into this. It's got stories from Stephen Graham Jones, Tanara Reeve-Dew, Cassandra Caw, Josh Malerman, so a whole mix of good, amazing horror writers. I loved it. I thought there was so many stories that were actually really creepy, took me down, and there was a nice bit in each of the stories. It would tell you the reason that the author would have this, like an author's note, and it would tell you the reason why they wrote said story, and some of it was inspired by either their own life experience or their connection in some way with sort of Eastern European or other countries' mythology or stories, dark stories around Christmas and winter. I really enjoyed it. I think it's most definitely a festive winter must read for horror fans. So get it on your list for Christmas 2024. The next was True Crime, Non-Fiction by Anne Rule. I never knew anything about Anne Rule until about 2 years ago, and some of my friends I follow on Instagram are big true crime readers. I love true crime documentaries, so this may be my 3rd or 4th Anne Rule. I can get quite a lot of them on audio, so I do like listening to them on audio. This one was called Too Late to Say Goodbye, a true story of murder and betrayal. So I've got my laptop here to remind me what I actually read, because my memory is like Dory from Finding Nemo. Yeah, so this, I knew nothing about this true crime. When did it come out? 2007. Jen Corbin, a lovely, slim, brown-eyed, blonde, appeared to have it all. 2 dear little boys, a posh home in one of the upscale suburbs of Atlanta, expensive cars, plush houseboat, and a husband, a successful dentist. But gradually their seemingly idyllic life began to crumble. There was talk of seeing a marriage counsellor. Jen seemed disenchanted. She needed to reach out to someone to confide in, but beyond her mother and sisters, then just a few weeks before Christmas 2004, Jen was found dead with a bullet in her head, a revolver beside her. From the position of the body of her death, appeared to be a suicide, but Gwinnett County Detective Marcus Head was not totally, I wish I could read now, should have prepped for this, shouldn't I? Was not totally convinced, nor was Jen's family, who could not believe she would take her own life. Anyway, it was a really, really good story. I gave it 4 It gets quite a good high ratings, gets an average of 4.04 on Goodreads. I thought it was a brilliant true crime. I just went into it totally blind. Narration was great. I think, did I get it on Everand, which used to be Scribd? Can't remember, I think so. I think they've got quite a few Anrules. I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend it for true crime readers. And I'll be definitely reading more of Anne Rule. Actually, if you've read Anne Rule, give me any of your recommendations. I've read the one she wrote about Ted Bundy. I can't remember the other ones I've read. I need to check my Goodreads again. But I'm on a flow right now on my laptop. Anyone else put stickers on their laptop and everything? So the next one I read after that was another non-fiction, and it was Matthew Perry's Memoir. What's the name of it again? Oh, let me check. Friends, Lovers and the Big Terrible Thing. I gave this 3 stars. I know a lot of people don't rate memoirs or autobiographies, but I don't mind rating it because from my point of view I'm rating it from it is not negate from the person's story at all, but I'm rating it based on how I felt the story was told and how I felt reading it. I appreciate that some people don't rate like memoirs and stuff, and that's totally cool. I just find it helpful when someone's talking about a memoir or something to give a bit of a steer of how they felt about it. It was very poignant to read post his death, so I found that quite a weird time to read it, because you almost felt there was so much struggle and pain that I did not realise, and as many people didn't realise until he published his book, that he was going through, that he had his story of addiction and everything and how that came about, and his success, and everything he tried to do to become sober and to help others. All of that was amazing. I think the bits I struggled with mainly were, and this was his honest portrayal or his honest kind of conversation about his life growing up, just how he treated women. Really struggled with that, so that's not so much, I suppose it's more of a comment about how he lived his life, as opposed to writing. I did actually find the writing, like the way he was telling the story, kind of jumped around a bit. That's fine, he's not an author. I can't remember if it's ghostwritten, actually, I don't know. And there was another element. There was a lot of chat about stoma and possibly having to be fitted with a stoma, and the level of his own negativity around that and everything to do with that, I really struggled with, because I do think that actually a stoma can save people, has and does save people's lives, and I think the stigma around stomas are so negative that I don't think he needed to feed into that. I think it should be looked as something that, oh my god, if this saves your life, it's a life adjustment. I'm not saying it isn't hard, and I know people who have, and it's like, this saved my life. And so the rhetoric around how he felt around the prospect of a stoma, I just really struggled with. Those bits aside, really fascinating story, really heartbreaking, and I would still recommend it. I would say it was 3 out of 5 stars. The next I read was one that I had had on my TBR for ages, seen loads of people talk about. It was Weyward by Emilia Hart. This was magical. So for anyone that doesn't know, it follows like 3 timelines and 3 women who are in some way connected to Weyward Cottage. So you've got Kate in 2019 and Alpha in 1619 and Violet in 1942. So they followed the timelines around those 3 women, 3 points of view and their story they're very much a feminist story. It's a story about witches, a word invented by men to brand women who were either independent, pushed against boundaries, overstepped their mark. Back in the 1600s, it would be women who probably didn't get married, dared to look at natural sort of healing, or any reason that a man didn't like or want a woman and wished them dead and didn't want them having any power. Not too dissimilar to nowadays. It was just fascinating. It's like a historical and modern day, with multiple points of view, review of women and their place in society and how they are persecuted by men. Utterly compelling. It was 4 out of 5 star reads for me. 4 out of 5 star rating for me. I'm getting thrown all the tech challenges today. Just had to plug you in. I went into low power mode. My device, not me apparently, but that's debatable. The next I read, which was 4 out of 5 stars for anyone who loves true crime and was addicted to the Murdaugh murders on Netflix. This is Tangled Veins, Power, Privilege and the Murdaugh Family Murders by John Glatt. It was only published summer last year. So this is a really up-to-date deep dive into that whole family, everything that happened in respect of recent day murders, the history of that family in that town. Oh, it was so engrossing. I highly recommend it. I mean, if you didn't think from already watching the Netflix show like how much power and privilege that family had and how toxic they were and where the case is at this present time, read it. Highly recommend. Thanks to NetGalley because they gave me the audiobook for free. Another one which I won't go into great detail because I did do a bit of a review on one of my earlier, my Bookish Day Out vlog, which was This Arab is Queer, an anthology by LGBTQ+ Arab writers, non-fiction. Got it from the library, just liked the sound of it, and it was brilliant. An open and honest insight into LGBTQ+ Arab writers, both their lived experience, current experience, the challenges and the hope that they found in their own communities, family and friends, or not so. Wonderful. Edited by Elias Jahshan. The next, also in the same vlog, I did do a bit of a review, was Normal Women by Ainsley Hogarth. I loved her other book, the prior book, Mother Thing. This one just didn't hit the mark for me. It was a 3 out of 5 star read because I enjoy Ainsley Hogarth's writing, but I came out going, was that it? What did I not get? Why would, like, it's just, I mean, it's supposed to be a dark comic story about female labour and sex work, and I don't know what you're allowed to say in BookTube, by the way, so that's one reason I'm spelling out. I'm sure they can pick that up anyway. I felt something was missing, or maybe I missed something. Anyway, check it out. Don't not check it out because I didn't love it. And the next one was What Iranians Want, Women, Life and Freedom by Arash Azizi. A must read for anyone want to understand more about Iran, the freedom fight for women in Iran, and just much more about Iranians and their country as opposed to this whitewashed, westernized media view that is all I was exposed to. It's brilliant research. It's super accessible to dive in because I think a lot of media and people are kind of told that a lot of what's happening politically, Eastern countries, is just like too complex for little white Western heads to comprehend, and it's not. It was absolutely fascinating. It was brilliant to see and understand the women's fight and uprising against the regime that they currently are in, and the challenges, and how we should check our own privilege, especially myself as a privileged white Western woman in Scotland who has way more freedoms than many of our fellow sisters in other parts of the world. Highly recommend it. Check it out. 4 out of 5 stars for me. My first 5-star read of 2024, I nearly said 2025, 2024 was Duck Feet by Eli Percy. Chef's kisses, loved it. Not my normal genre, but I'll read you the synopsis. Duck Feet is a coming of age novel set in the mid-noughties in Renfrew and Paisley, Scotland, so near where I grew up. Dive in and follow the 12-year-old Kirsty Campbell and her friends as they navigate life from 1st to 6th year in Renfrew Grammar School. Relatable, quirky and sometimes heart-wrenching, this story paints an authentic portrait of growing up in working class Scotland. I had so much to relate to this. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so noughties was a wee bit later than me, but still absolutely loved it. It's written in colloquial sort of Paisley, west of Scotland dialect, so it takes you a wee while to get into that if you're not familiar with it. I am, so I could absolutely read it in my head, but it is just, it's heartwarming, it's laugh out loud funny. Like literally there was points where I had to video myself laughing. I didn't have to video myself laughing, but I was sending it to a friend who had read it, rated it 5 stars and recommended it to me, and so I was like, oh my god, this is hilarious. There were so many things from growing up at school, is finding your friend group or not so much. Social dancing, which was at school where you got taught like Kaylee dancing for the Christmas school dance, which was a total beamer because it was like all the girls, this is how binary it was, all the girls in a row and all the boys, and the boys had to pick a girl. I never got picked, and it was just all the awkwardness of growing up. There was some really heartwarming, quite heartbreaking things as well. I keep having to deleting phone storage. I get too much crap, mostly videos and pictures of my doggos and BookTube ones. Anyway, Duck Feet, read it in 2024 if you haven't already. I should maybe whiz through this a little bit faster because I'm taking ages, aren't I? It's my first January wrap up. It's my first book wrap up on BookTube. So bear with me. The other one, oh my god, I've read so many non-fiction. Also listen to this on audio. It's Black Boys Like Me: Confrontations with Race, Identity and Belonging by Matthew R. Morris. I got this as an advanced listener art from Liberal FM, and I'm going to read you the synopsis. This book is a meditation on the influences that have shaped black boys like me. What does it mean to be a young black man with an immigrant father and a white mother, teaching in a school system that historically has held an exclusionary definition of success? There were so many elements of this book that I utterly loved. It was powerful, it was emotive, and it was an honest account of Morrissey's influences in his life and how structural racism in our world impacts white people's perspective and the lives of black people, but also his own perceptions of others. That was really insightful read for me as well. I loved the stories of him and his mum and their relationship. It was just utterly heartbreaking as well. The audiobook was brilliantly narrated by the author. The book was brilliantly narrated by the author. It was such a compelling read. It was a all-consuming, necessary read, and I highly recommend it. Honestly, I had not been on my radar before, and I just picked it up. I liked the sound of it, and yeah, 4 out of 5 stars for me. No, actually, correction, 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next one is also non-fiction. I picked it up randomly on Scribd, Everand. I'll still keep calling it Scribd. Maybe by the end of 2024 I'll call it Everand. So the audiobook subscription I've got, and it was called Drunkest, a memoir of living and leaving alcohol by Stephanie Wilder Taylor. So what I didn't know is Stephanie is author of many books, mostly about kind of sobriety and motherhood. So as I am sober 6 years this month in February. So I gave up drinking 6 years ago for many reasons. Health, I've got a compromised immune system, my relationship with alcohol was a bit grey, and I found moderating really challenging, so I stopped, and that's me being 6 years sober, so soon, maybe by the time this comes out. So I'm always interested in kind of sober stories, or stories around especially women's relationship with alcohol, and sometimes like the marketing of our alcohol, or how, yeah, loads of that stuff. So I was compelled to read this. I did really enjoy it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and mainly because I really enjoyed her story about the points at which, or what she went through in life to maybe, and it's actually written really quite humorously, I quite like that as well, about her challenges with alcohol, and at the point where she was like, you go, like, I went through the stages of where you try and moderate and you're like, maybe just one glass, or you start measuring, and it's like literally takes up so much space in your brain. So she talks a lot about that, a lot of which relate, but then a large chunk, almost half the book, I couldn't relate to because I'm child free, I don't have kids, and she talks about alcohol and motherhood, so I think that this would be absolutely fascinating read for mothers who struggle with alcohol or are questioning their alcohol consumption, or actually just even how the media portray being a mother and drinking as a coping mechanism. So really, really interesting, but because I don't relate to that lifestyle, it was less, I suppose, gripping for me in that instance, but would highly recommend. I think it would be more stars. I gave it 3 out of 5, and I think it would be more stars for people that maybe relate to being a parent and having questions about alcohol, their alcohol consumption. Time for a wee. I'm doing a lot of talking, aren't I? Hope I'm not boring you. I'm literally just sitting on a wee cushion in front of my books, because I'm getting some nice natural light. It's been a few days. It's been grey, rainy and windy. I think we've had about 1 million storms since the start of January, so see, as soon as like mid-Feb comes, I'm like all about spring. Get the daffodils, get the sunlight, you know, and I love autumn, winter, some of my favourite seasons. But then spring, I'm like, when you just feel like you're coming out and everything's rebirthing. Also, the Papadoos aren't here today. Well, they are. They're just not here when I'm recording. So they're at the groomers. They're getting their wee haircuts. Patty is going in to get spayed soon, so she's getting a proper wee haircut, and Lucy goes in, and I know she's like a smooth haired beagle, so you wouldn't think, but actually the groomer does an amazing job of just getting all that hair, all those little white hairs that just stick to me every day. So just giving that wee clear. So no papas today, I'm afraid. Like I say though, I'll give you extra papa time later. So the next book was also one that I picked up on Scribd. I think I've probably done at least 50, if not 60% audio this last month, January. The Only Living Girl on Earth by Charles Yu. I knew nothing about this other than it was like really short, and I liked the description. So it says, from the genre-defying, critically beloved author of How to Live Safely in a Science Fictional Universe and Interior Chinatown, none of these I've read, and one of the creative minds behind HBO's Westworld, I know of, never watched, comes a sweet and searing, unexpected and delightfully absurd vision of life on Earth 1,000 years in the future. Just loved the idea of it. I thought it was well written. Bit too sci-fi for me. I don't mind a little bit of sci-fi, and I like dystopian. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm trying to see how many pages it is, because it is quite short. Oh, it's a Scribd original. Maybe that's why I picked it up. I can't remember. I'll look and put it here how long it is. But yeah, loved it. 3 stars. I think all you need to do is go in knowing that. Plus, the cover is delish. There was a non-fiction that totally spoke to me. It's called Good with Money by Emma Edwards. I've read quite a lot of budgeting books and stuff, just for adult and me to try and get better with budgeting my own money and stuff. But this was one of the best ones I've read, only because I think Emma, as a young woman, really dives into how society and media market to women, and how our overconsumption isn't really our fault. I mean, it is a bit, but we're so heavily influenced to consume, especially women, both on, you know, your looks, living up to lifestyles, influences we get. So I loved a lot of that element, as well as the practical parts where she talked about how you can get better with your money. She is a kind of finance expert, so it was really great to see it from that really insightful young woman's point of view. Highly recommend it. I listened to it in audio. I do like listening to those kind of books on audio, because I think they're really easy to consume in that way, and loads of tips I took from it. Highly recommend if you're looking for some tips and guidance and validation that it's not your fault if you're not great with money. And last but not least, my last read. Oh no, wait. This is my last read of January 2024. Amazing mix. A lot of non-fiction. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 out of the 13 books I read in January were non-fiction. I don't think I realised that. And I had 1 5-star, that was Duck Feet, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 4 stars, although Black Boys Like Me was 4.5 stars, and the rest were kind of 3, 2.5. The reason, like, a 3 is a good read for me, it's just not amazing. And I would say Normal Women nearly rated it lower, but I do love Ainsley Hogarth's writing, and I loved the commentary about work for women and that. So there was so many elements that was like, oh, I couldn't. It was still great, and I think other people will enjoy it. So that there was my January reading. That there was my January. That there was my January reading wrap up. It was a pretty good month. Much more non-fiction than expected. Should I do a February TBR? Do people do them? I mean, I watch them. I watch other people, so they do them. I know that. Do you want me to do them? Is there a different way I could do my reading wrap up? Like, should I show, like, create graphs? I like seeing people's graphs. I need to start a spreadsheet. I mean, I've got the beginnings of a spreadsheet, but I've not added it. It won't take me that long to catch up. There's only 13 books. I use my Goodreads, keep trying to use Storygraph. But it's just so many things to keep up to date. The admin, I've just been a reader. But I do love a spreadsheet and I love a graph. Let me know. Anyway, what did you read in January? Have you read any of the books that I've mentioned? Are any of the books of interest Why have I lost the ability to talk as it comes to the end of this? No idea. Any of the books here that I've mentioned that you fancy adding to your TBR? Any books that I've read where you're like, oh, if you like that, you'll definitely read this? Let me know, because I'm always looking for endless additions to my TBR. I apologise that the pups are not here today. I know they're the star of the show, but they will be back in my next vlog, with the one I'm recording just now, which involves a bit of pottering around the house, the doggos who are going to see my mum for her birthday, and all that jazz. yes, so thanks for watching. Please be a critical friend and give me feedback on how I can do this better next month. Maybe actually remember the books I've read and not have to look at my laptop. But, you know, I'm Dory from Finding Nemo. And also the dog from Up. Squirrel. Anyway, thanks as always for watching, for taking the time to watch any seconds of my videos, for liking them, for subscribing, for commenting. Honestly, I absolutely appreciate it. It's so wonderful. I've met so many lovely people on here. I love chatting to you. Well, I feel like, even though I'm just chatting to my phone, I feel like I'm chatting to you all. So thanks again. And if you like this video or have seen any others, please like and subscribe. And I'll catch you again soon. Bye!